Hey guys, what's up? Hope you're having a great day today. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 times that composers predicted the future. Now for this first one, I'm going to play it for you before I tell you what it is, and I hope none of you recognize it so that you'll actually have the experience of being like, oh, this kind of sounds like it's in this era, and then it won't be. Now, hopefully what I kind of just now convinced you of by my playing was that this piece is somewhere in the early 1800s, early Romantic era, maybe like a Beethoven piece. But this is actually Haydn. Just in case you don't know, Haydn actually lived up until the early years of the 1800s. So it's possible for Haydn to write a piece that we consider sort of in the extremely early Romantic era. But that's not the case with this piece. This piece was written in 1789 or 1790. And funny enough, this middle movement doesn't really start romantic at all. It starts really Haydn classical. So really the first big A section of this piece is a very classical Haydn middle movement. And then we get into the whole. And just in case you're wondering about the pedal, yes, I'm pedaling to make it sound more romantic to help prove my point. All right, I want you to play my game one more time and try to guess when this piece was written. And if you said Frederick Chopin, the 1830s and the 1840s, you were absolutely right. That's who I wanted you to think it was. But it's not Chopin. And it's not the 1830s either. What you just heard was a nocturne written in 1817 by an Irish composer named John Field. Now, there are a lot of shocking things about that. First of all, a nocturne. When I learned this in college, I was like, oh, okay, so he made it the word nocturne, and then Chopin used nocturnes later and made them good. What I didn't realize was how much stylistically this feels like Chopin. You can really feel that kind of rolling left-hand accompaniment. They show so much of Chopin's style as far as his textures go and some of the melodic flourishes that Chopin has. I'm actually going to do a whole video, probably called something funny like Chopin's Real Daddy or something, where I kind of talk about several of these pieces. So I'm not going to get too deep into them today, but they're crazy. It's crazy that they were written when Chopin was a child. It's crazy. This person is 30 years older than Chopin and sort of kind of beckoning in this new style, and he did it being born in Ireland, which isn't even really like the up-and-coming music scene in lots of Europe at the time. John Field, cool guy, predicted the future, and also a future video all about him coming up soon. Okay, so we started off with Haydn, pretty old composer, then we moved on to John Field a little later. Now we're going to take a huge jump forward. We'll come back forward and pick up some other people here in a second, but we're going to take a huge jump forward to a composer who's actually still alive today, and that's Terry Riley. In case you don't know, Terry Riley is sort of credited with early minimalism in music. Now, minimalism has become a very difficult thing to describe in music because there's like the idea of minimalism, then there's the way we actually use it in music. So if you don't know what it is, I would just recommend after this video checking out NC by Terry Riley to see why I'm including him. Now, he's on the list today, not just because minimalism became a huge thing in classical music 20, 30 years after him, that whole time period, and even still to this day. I'm actually including him on the list because of where pop music and film scores have gone now. If you just listen to some pop music or you listen to some film scores today, you'll see this massive amount of layering of small cells or ideas, and eventually you just kind of get this wash or wall of sound where there's a whole bunch of figures, and actually lots of the figures work over top of lots of chords. So you get these things where you might have a, oh, I can't hear anything. Hang on, I dropped my headphones. So something that would be really normal to hear in modern pop music would be something like, kind of the idea that you can take a cell or a group of notes and just mix it with a whole bunch of different sounds and explore how that group of notes is going to sound as the harmony changes underneath it. And even layering that you get, where you get like, now I could do this and another instrument could come in and do something different and kind of build on that. We can play back and forth a little bit. So I just feel like a lot of our modern musical taste has come from this idea of layering a whole bunch of layers on top of each other, and sometimes to the point where you can't even distinguish the layers much anymore. Obviously had a huge impact just on the immediate next 20, 30 years of classical music as well. I just see a lot of those ideas have just infiltrated all of our musical senses today. Next on the list is a composer in a piece that really has to be here. And every time you mention this fact, there's someone very surprised by it, and that's that Liszt. Franz Liszt, the great romantic pianist, attempted to write a piece without a key. It's a bagatelle without tonality. Now, throughout the very early 1900s, composers like Schoenberg and Webern and Berg kind of codified this system a little more. But here's Liszt back in the 1880s, 20 years before Schoenberg's trying to do this, just trying to write atonal music, totally calling this thing that's going to happen in 20, 30 years from now is going to totally take over most music. Most music will not be tonal for a while. And he did this way back in 1885. It's really weird. It's a weird piece to listen to. I'm not even going to say I like the piece that much, but you have to admit that he really predicted the future in this area. I also really hope there's a public domain recording I can stick in here for you guys to listen to, because if not, I'm not going to learn that piece for your demonstration. Go look it up after the video. Now, before we get into the last composer, I think it's worth mentioning, since I haven't said it outright yet, that sometimes it's hard to tell whether a composer predicted the future or they caused the future to happen. Like, did John Fields predict Chopin style, or did he influence Chopin style? Obviously, there's almost always some of both. That's really true of our final composer. It's Beethoven. I'm not even going to pick a piece. Beethoven's my favorite composer, and he's kind of like the guy that took us from classical and by the end, super romantic. Now, did he predict romanticism, or did he forcefully cause it to happen? Both, because Beethoven's awesome. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.